What is going on, guys? This is Crowzen, and welcome back to another Oblivion Remastered build, and this time we have the Blood Death Knight. So this build is a little bit inspired by old school World of Warcraft, and I wanted to implement some of those old school abilities that the Blood Death Knights used to use a lot, which were Death and Decay and Death Strike. So I added two different spells to kind of replicate that, one at long range and one at short range. And then also we're still going to have those amazing undead summons. So we're going to have not only the skeletons, but you can also summon a lich with this to really get that Death Knight feel. So let's take a look at the build. So beginning with the race and the class, I went with an orc for this Blood Death Knight build as I feel like they fit Death Knights perfectly, and they were one of the original races that you can make a Death Knight in World of Warcraft. As far as the origin, I recommend going Orsinium over Stronghold because they will start with 10 more intelligence and only 5 less willpower, so you get some very good stats overall with strength, intelligence, and willpower. For the class, we're going to choose a custom Death Knight class. For the specialization, I recommend just going with magic because as you can see, we have a lot of magic major skills with this build. For the favorite attributes, I recommend going with strength and intelligence as maxima magica is always my preferred method over going with higher willpower, and then strength, this is pretty self-explanatory. That's where our damage is going to come from with our battle axe. For the major skills, we're going to go with 3 combat skills, those being armor, blunt, and heavy armor, since we are going to be using heavy armor, and we're going to be using battle axes with this build. I really feel like that fits a Death Knight perfectly. For the magic skills, we're going to go with 4 major skills here, being conjuration, destruction, illusion, and restoration. Conjuration is going to be used for summoning undead, destruction is going to be used for 2 of our main spells, illusion is very good for paralysis, and then restoration is going to be good for absorb health, also restore health, and fortify willpower. For the birth sign, I recommend just going with the mage as we get a plus 50 to our magicka, and that's always going to be beneficial for just about any build. This build is going to be no different. We're going to be using a whole bunch of spells with this one. So for the attribute level path, this is going to look very similar to my paladin build. I go by priority and I go with the 5-5-2 method. So I go with strength, intelligence, and endurance first. Once strength is maxed out, then I will focus on willpower after that, and those are going to be our 4 main attributes. At that point, you're basically free to do whatever you want. I go for speed because speed is a very good quality of life thing to have, and then also agility and luck after that. And at level 30, this is how your attributes are going to look, and we're going to have everything that we need maxed out, so at this point the build is already done. And all of our attributes look good other than personality, but I feel like that suits an orc and a Death Knight in general, so you kind of get the feel with that as well. Next up, we can go over the equipment, and we're going to start with the weapon. So the best weapon in the game is actually enchanting your own because you can put some nasty effects on them. So you're going to have to go through the Mages Guild recommendations or just go to the Wizard's Tower and buy the Altar of Enchanting there. And once you have that unlocked, go ahead and select your weapon, select a Grand Soul, and then you are ready to start enchanting. So whenever we're enchanting our weapon or creating our own spells, always put the damage effects first and the weakness effects last, ending with weakness to magic. So for the Blood Death Knight weapon, I went with damage health 10 points 1 second, drain health 100 points 1 second, soul trap 1 second, and then I ended off with weakness to magic 100% for 3 seconds. That way I have enough time to get a charge attack in. Now if you wanted a stronger weapon, you could actually go for elemental damage instead of damage health, and then just add those weakness to elements, whether that be fire, frost, or shock, right before you do weakness to magic. In this case, I felt like for the theme of a Blood Death Knight, damage health just worked out the best. Then say if we were like a Frost Death Knight, then frost damage would make a lot more sense here. So again, this is just my own personal preference. If you want more damage, then just add elemental damage effects instead. So the best armor in the game isn't going to come from enchanting your own, but rather getting the Transcendent Sigil Stones and enchanting them with these, which you can unlock from taking on Oblivion Gates at level 17 or higher. So make sure to look out for those Fortify Magicka defensive effects because we are going to be using a bunch of those. So for the armor set, we're going to go with the Daedric set because I feel like it fits Blood Death Knights pretty well. And we're going to be using a lot of Fortify Magicka from those Transcendent Sigil Stones. So I went ahead and added that not only to the chest piece, but the greaves, the helmet, and also the shield. So you can actually equip shields even though you're never going to be using one. So it's basically just going to count as an extra enchantment that you can have on your character. As for the boots and the gauntlets, I went with Fortify Health from the Transcendent Sigil Stones to try to mimic that tankiness that Blood Death Knights have. For the amulets, the best ones are going to be finding them randomly in boss containers, so Amulet of Axis is going to be the best one that you can have here. Not only is this going to fortify your blunt by 25 points, which is nice if you don't have it maxed out, but also that reflect damage 33%. Acrobat's Amulet is another really good one, as well as Spell Drinker Amulet, and you can even go for Necklace of Swords for that reflect damage 33% as well. You could even add the Escutcheon of Coral if you wanted to go for some crazy reflect damage on this build, but honestly it starts to get a little bit too overpowered in my opinion, so I just stick to Fortify Magicka. For the rings, I like to use Ring of Perfection for a plus 10 to all of my attributes if you could find this out in the world. Same with Sorcerer's Ring, it's another really good one for Spell Absorption and Fortify Magicka. You also have the Mundane Ring for 50% magic resist. This is going to pair up really nicely with an Orc because they start out with 25% magic resist. You can also just create your own with the Transcendent Sigil Stones, and that way you can get another 50 Magicka to the build. So now we could go over some of the custom-made spells that I've created to be a Blood Death Knight, so be sure to get ready to start making some spells. So beginning with one of our main destruction spells, that will be Death and Decay, and the version that I went for has this AoE effect, and in order to get that you have to put paralysis on the effect. So I went for paralysis 20 feet for 1 second, and then just drain health 10 feet 1 second, and weakness to magic 10 feet 5 seconds. It's a very low magicka cost, and it's a very good debuff spell as well as a good CC spell with that paralysis effect. Now I wanted to add damage health to this, but every time I did it would change the animation that you would get. You wouldn't get like this nice little AoE ground effect. The other destruction / restoration spell will be Death Strike, and this is an on-touch spell with absorb health 34 points 2 seconds, damage health 9 points 2 seconds, drain health 100 points 2 seconds, Soul Trap 2 seconds, and then weakness to magic 100% for 3 seconds. So the main idea behind this spell is to replicate the healing that you would get whenever you used to use Death Strike, so that is where the absorb health is coming from. Now you can actually play around with this and go for like a crazy magnitude if you really want to get some crazy health absorption. Our main healing spell is going to be Rune Tap, and it's going to be just like how it was for Death Knights in the game, where, you know, it's a nice big restore health spell for 2 seconds. I also added Fortify Willpower 100 points for 7 seconds, so it's a lot like that Resto Power spell that you guys are used to. And another spell that you guys might remember is Willpower Boost. This is just a very good spell that you can use to fortify your willpower for a very long time, and it's really just going to regenerate your magicka at a very fast pace. I highly recommend everyone to use this once you have the magicka to cast it. As far as the main conjuration spells for this build, I like to use the Skeleton Hero a bunch. Not only do they last for 50 seconds with the default spell, but they seem to be pretty decent in combat. I actually tried using the Skeleton Champion, and even though they are stronger, at least they should be, it seems like they hardly ever attack. So at least the Skeleton Hero to me seems a little bit better at actually attacking enemies and not just standing there. Our other summon is going to be a Lich, and I made a custom spell for this one called Summon Lich Extended, as this will increase the duration by 10 seconds, as the normal Lich summon is only 20 seconds, which is a little bit too low in my opinion. And then I also added Fortify Willpower 100.7 seconds, so that way we can regenerate our magicka pretty quickly in the background. I also recommend that you do level up your alteration in order to cast some very good feather spells. So once you get to 100 alteration, you'll be able to buy Beast of Burden, and this is the best single feather spell in the game. But remember that you can stack these and you can create your own right at the Mages Guild. And finally, we can go over some combat tips, so stick around because there are quite a few things to go over. So whenever you get to a dungeon, I recommend just casting your willpower boost, and that's going to regenerate your magicka very quickly for about 65 seconds, and you're going to be using this quite a bit, so get in the habit of using that willpower boost, and it's just going to be so much better because you're going to regenerate your magicka so much faster, not only outside of combat, but in combat. For the rotation, I like to begin with a Death and Decay first and then follow up with a Charge Battle Axe attack, as that's going to give you shield and you're going to reach the armor cap. You can also begin with Death Strike 2 and then follow up with a Charge Battle Axe attack as well. The nice thing here though is that we do have 3 different ways of damaging the enemy, so you can add your own combos the way you want to. You could even go for something like All Magic, where you go with like a Death Strike first and then you just spam Death and Decay and weaken them that way, and that'll just drain their health constantly and they will just be stuck in that paralysis animation. Death and Decay also works out very well with a large group of enemies, as that will just paralyze them. It'll also debuff them with weakness to magic, and then you could just follow up with your Battle Axe or Death Strike. You should also go for the Azora Star as early as you can in the game. That way you can put this on your hotkey, and anytime your weapon runs low on charges, you can just go right into the Azora Star, recharge your weapon very easily without having to go in your inventory. Also, make sure that you do utilize those summons, whether you use a lich or any of the skeletons that are out there. They make for a great distraction because a lot of times the enemies will aggro them, and this is really important, especially on the higher difficulties. And lastly, the Death Strike spell is a very good spell to use for recovering a little bit of health because it does have absorb health on it. And the one that I used wasn't even the max magnitude, so if you want to spend more magicka, you could even go for a stronger version of absorb health. So thank you guys for watching till the end, and I hope you enjoyed this Blood Death Knight build for Oblivion Remastered, and this build was a lot of fun to make. And if this video does well, I could do another Death Knight inspired build, probably a Frost version. That way we can mix some Frost spells in there. So let me know what you think about this. Let me know if there's any improvements that I could make here, and I will see you guys in the next video.